All right, and so in our last video here, we're going to talk about combining like terms with equations. So when we have the option to combine like terms and distribute, we always want to distribute first. But sometimes before we can start moving stuff from one side to the other, we need to tidy things up on the one side. So looking at our first example here to solve, we have 2x plus 5 minus 1x minus 4 equals 14. So I see that I have an equation, so I know that I can drop down my line to keep track of one side versus the other. And what I notice on the left-hand side is that I have multiple x terms and I have multiple constants over there. So I want to tidy this up. I want to simplify that left-hand side before I can start moving terms from one side to the other in an effort to solve. So we're going to first simplify by combining our like terms. So what I look for is that I have a 2x and a negative x. Notice that I'm keeping the sign with it. And so I'm going to combine those two first. 2x minus that 1x is going to give us 1x. Next, I notice that I have a positive 5 and a negative 4. Again, notice I'm keeping the signs with it. I can combine those two, 5 minus 4, to give a positive 1. So I've tidied up the left-hand side and I get equals 14 still to the right-hand side. Now that I've tidied it up, I'm ready to start moving my terms in an effort to solve. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think what's happening. First, I have multiplied by 1, then I'm adding 1 to get to equal 14. So in order to solve, I'm going to undo the last thing that was happening, which was the addition, by subtracting 1 on both sides. I'm going to bring down that 1x, which is the same as x, and I have 14 minus 1 to get 13. So I've isolated the x here, so that was actually really simple once we've tidied that up. And isolating, we had one step here to solve, and we got x equals 13. Now, just like before, we can check our answers. We can check our answers by rewriting, substituting, and simplifying. So I'm going to rewrite the equation, 2x plus 5 minus x minus 4 is equal to 14. Next thing I'm going to do is substitute. Now be very careful here because I have x in two different places. So I'm going to substitute it in both of those locations. So I have 2 times 13 plus 5 minus 13 minus 4. And I want to know, is that equal to 14? So following our order of operations, I'm going to multiply before I do any addition or subtraction. So 2 times 13 giving us 26. And then I'm going to add 5, subtract 13, and subtract 4. All right, now all we have left is addition and subtraction. So I'm going to work from left to right. So 26 plus 5 giving us 31, bringing everything else down. 31 minus 13 giving us 18, bringing everything else down. 18 minus 4 giving us 14, which is in fact equal to 14. So that will also check out. All right, now for our next step, we have a little bit more complex of an equation going on here. So I have 3 open parentheses, 2x minus 3 close parentheses, plus 4x plus 10 equals 15. All right, so again, I have that equation. I can drop down my line. Now, one of the things that I notice here is that I'm not ready to just combine like terms because I also have the distributive property happening within those first, that 3 times 2x minus 3. So I see that formatting of the distributive property, which will always come first before I can combine like terms. Because when I distribute that 3, then I'm going to end up with eliminating the parentheses, which will then allow me to add or subtract to combine my like terms. So I'm going to always distribute first if I have that. So distributing out, 3 times 2x is going to give us 6x. 3 times negative 3 is going to give us a negative 9. And then I'm going to bring down the 4x, and I'm going to bring down the 10. All right, now that I've distributed and all I have left is addition and subtraction, I'm ready to combine my like terms. So I'm going to look for any other x terms, and I have 2 of those. I have a 6x and a 4x, so those will combine to get 10x. I then have a negative 9 and a positive 10. Those will combine to get a positive 1. And then I bring down the equals 15. So now I'm ready to start solving. So that was all just to simplify that left-hand side. Now I'm ready to solve. So in solving, I look at what's happening. I have 10x plus 1 is equal to 15. And so I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to undo that plus 1 by subtracting 1 on both sides. And I get 10x is equal to 14. Now to solve for x, I need to undo that multiplication here. And so I'm going to undo by dividing by 10. Now this does not divide, we can say evenly or nicely. So if you wanted to use your calculator here to do 14 divided by 10, you could. And we will get 1.4. Now, do not be alarmed by the fact that we just got, a decimal here. Decimals happen, fractions happen, that's okay. So we can have that decimal. We can still check it even with the decimal. So here I've got to rewrite my equation. And then I'm going to substitute. When I substitute here, I'm going to be very careful because I'm going to plug in that 1.4, not just here, but also over here. It's happening twice. Now, I will admit that I'm going to be a tiny bit lazy for this one because my video is running a little bit long and I want to be as careful and precise as possible. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to use my calculator to type this in, and I can type this in exactly as I see it. I can type in 3, open parentheses, 2, open parentheses, 1.4, close parentheses, minus 3, another close parentheses, plus 4, open parentheses, 1.4, close parentheses, plus 10. You can type that whole thing into your calculator and you will get 15, which is in fact equal to 15. And so that will check out. So when we have these multi-step equations where we have like terms and distributing, you're always going to distribute first, then you can combine like terms. So we're going to do our distributing, which is multiplication, before we do addition and subtraction. So that's really just following order of operations to simplify. Once we've got a nice little two-step equation, we're ready to solve by undoing the constant with addition or subtraction, and then undoing the coefficient by multiplying or dividing. Remember that we can always check our answers by rewriting, substituting, and simplifying. In that second example, I showed you that you could absolutely use your calculator to help you out with that simplifying step to, again, be a little bit more precise here. All right, I hope you enjoyed this review of solving equations.